Today, I rise in strong support of House Bill 1168 because this legislation is about fairness, it's about care, and it's about common sense. Home health and hospice workers are among the caregivers who show up in the most tender moments of life. I know firsthand the dedication it takes for patients, not just in hospitals, but in their homes where healing can be deeply personal and where life's final moments deserve respect and presence. Home health and hospice workers are there after surgery, after a life-changing diagnosis, or in the final days of a loved one's life. They enter people's spaces not just as professionals, but often as lifelines. Nurses, physical and occupational therapists, speech pathologists, and other skilled professionals all enter a person's home and provide wound care, mental health counseling, rehabilitation services, medication management, and emotional support. And they do it all while navigating long drives, complex family dynamics, and often extremely unpredictable living conditions. But too many of these caregivers are being pushed to their limits. I've spoken directly to nurses and clinicians in my district who are burned out and exhausted, not by the work itself, but by how often the system undervalues them and doesn't support the work that they do. Right now, many agencies are still tying pay to productivity, even though this legislature banned pay per visits for nurses in 2009. However, many employers have created a point system that functions just the same. If a visit goes longer because a patient's condition has worsened, or the family has questions about medications, or a referral needs to be made, those extra minutes don't count. What counts is how many points the caregiver racks up in a day. But if they fall short, they risk discipline, pay cuts, or both. We cannot keep asking caregivers to choose between doing their jobs well and keeping their paychecks intact. House Bill 1168 will close the pay per visit loophole. It ensures that all our home health and hospice clinicians are paid for their time and skill and not how quickly they can move from one vulnerable patient to the next. It ensures that caregivers are compensated for all of their work and doesn't disincentivize taking patients who are more time-consuming. However, this legislation still allows for an employer to track productivity and can still set expectations, but it can't punish someone financially just for taking the time needed to deliver real, meaningful care for those experiencing their toughest times. Now, you may have heard some concerns that this bill will hurt small agencies, or that it will slow down patient intake, or that rural communities will suffer, or that clinicians may even exploit this loophole. I want to take the opportunity to set the record straight. This bill does not prohibit setting performance standards, and it doesn't stop employers from tracking productivity or meeting Medicare benchmarks. I must reassert here that this bill does not prohibit employers from developing productivity expectations that serve as a benchmark. They can also continue to collect productivity data to share with Medicare/Medicaid if doing so is necessary. The Employer Association has asserted this bill undermines the Medicare conditions of participation for home health providers in statute. I disagree. In fact, the word productivity does not appear once in this applicable statute. And once again, this bill does not prohibit employers from developing productivity expectations for workers. But it does say that caregivers shouldn't be penalized when care takes longer than expected or when a rural patient lives further away. In reality, this bill may improve access, especially to rural areas, because when caregivers don't have to choose between visiting a patient who lives 45 minutes away or meeting their productivity target, they can finally say yes to rural Oregon families who need them. And as for the fear that clinicians might exploit this by seeing only one patient a day without consequence, that is simply not how healthcare works. Agencies have plenty of tools to assess quality, competence, and performance. The scenario painted of an employee who is only seeing 1 or 2 patients per day would be an employee who is not meeting other aspects of performance standards, such as competence, appropriate documentation, appropriate level of care based on assessment, and provider order and untruthfulness. Employers could use disciplinary action in a caregiver's failure to meet any one of these standards. What this bill does is restore a baseline of fairness, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, we are talking about people who sit at the bedside, who hold our hands and answer tough questions in our most vulnerable moments. We owe it to them and to the patients they serve to make sure they are supported and cared for as well. And with that, I urge an aye vote. Thank you.